name is Jake Lawless. I have been wrestling since May 2021, based in Glasgow in Scotland.
My name is Brody Turnbull. I have also been wrestling since May 2021, and I'm based out of Glasgow, Scotland as well.
So you guys coming in together at the same time, have you guys like come up together through the academies and like trained together kind of?
Yeah, we have more or less. I think there was 2 or 3 weeks difference in the first time we stepped into a wrestling ring. And our first coach, who was Wolfgang Young, he saw some potential for us to be a tag team, and then we started training as a tag team maybe 3 months after starting, something like that. I think it was about August, September of 2021, so pretty quickly, aye.
Yeah, obviously you come through the same class, same academy. Have you been wrestling as a tag team since the beginning of your careers? How many matches would you say you've had now? Is it
Are you on 65?
Okay,
Tonight will be 63.
Which means tonight will be 61 for me.
Right.
Yeah. So they have been, the vast majority have been tag team matches together, and the little singles appearances and like rumble matches and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much career tag team so far.
Career tag team.
I was wondering, how much different is it wrestling in a tag team than in singles, and what is like the benefits and like the best parts of doing it like together as a team, really?
So for me, like really getting into tag team wrestling and learning how it works and how to make good tag team matches, you look at the wrestling ring in a totally different way, because it gets divided up differently, and there's areas that you can't go, there's areas that you have to stay in, and it's kind of restricting, but at the same time it's the attention to detail is so important that I think it is I would actually say to anyone who was wrestling, even if they're not interested in pursuing a career in a tag team, to do tag team classes, because it gives you a really well-rounded knowledge of the whole sport, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely. There's so many nuances with tag team wrestling, and there's so many rules that the people watching might not even be aware of that you have to follow. And if you do not follow those rules, the match won't make sense when you're watching it. You might not know what you're watching, but you know that it's not good. So to learn all of that is quite the task, but it's very rewarding. When you're in a tag team match and it's firing on all cylinders and all 4 men are working well, there's not a better feeling in the world.
Yeah, totally. And you do also get the occasional little, if you are booked in a singles match or whatever and you're so used to doing tag wrestling, there's that wee moment where you can breathe a slight sigh of relief.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, it's a bit different tonight. I don't have to worry about this, don't have to worry about that, I don't have to worry about all these moving parts. But you get really protective of tag wrestling if you do a lot of it. And then when you do see a tag match where people aren't respecting the tag boundaries and stuff, it really triggers you.
And how important is the story elements, and how do you both try and put that into your matches and make sure it's like a key part almost?
Yeah, it's a good question, man, because it's obviously Brody and I are as you can see, we're pretty different sizes, which means we wrestle in different styles, and a lot of tag teams that we face will also have that to deal with. And when you've got 4 guys in the ring who all want to get across their own identity as a pro wrestler, how they want to wrestle and do the wrestling that they enjoy, because Brody and I we've got a lot of mutual tastes in pro wrestling, we've got also wildly different tastes in pro wrestling, so to try and bridge that gap is all part of building the relationship, I suppose, of your tag partner, and then again respecting the guys you're in the ring with, because they'll have the same thoughts, and it's a pretty challenging aspect of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you wrestle for a company like ICW as well, storytelling is the main driving kind of force behind the company. It's more about the storytelling than it is about the in-ring action, which nowadays is a pretty unique thing, especially in British wrestling.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to kind of push the boundaries of our characters, of what we're doing in the ring, and always trying to keep that interesting. And yeah, it's a very enjoyable part of it.
You talk about your different tastes in wrestling, how you've both kind of got similar yet also different kind of. What are some of those things, in terms of tag teams? What were some of the ones you'd look to in terms of kind of classic wrestling? Or
that we're both mutually sort of looking up to?
Either.
I mean, so I was a child of the Attitude Era, WWF at the time. So I fell in love with tag team wrestling because of guys like New Age Outlaws and Hardy Boys, Dudleys, Edge and Christian, all that kind of stuff. You started more with WCW?
Yes, yeah. So I kind of tend to look towards Harlem Heat, Steiner Brothers, from kind of mid to late 2000s. That's certainly what got me into wrestling was WCW.
And Brody's hugely into and really knowledgeable about everything in Japan. I embarrassingly know like very little. Although I'm starting to learn more just because I'm having to remember names that Brody brings up in conversation. Like, oh, I think you remember you telling me about that guy 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's like that brings in like the different tastes that we have in wrestling style as well. Because obviously the Japanese style can be really different from what we get in the West. And obviously the Attitude Era was so, how they put on matches was so different to kind of what we consume nowadays. But you can't really be in pro wrestling in 2024 and not respect what people are trying to do now. Otherwise, you just look like a dinosaur. But if you can like take little bits and pieces from that, which I think it's what we try to do because of our age for a start. It's probably a benefit that we have over some guys that are 18, 19, who haven't seen all that stuff happen in real time and experience what that buzz was like when wrestling was the cultural phenomenon. Like boys, girls, everyone at school was into it. It was wild. Just about balancing all those different tastes.
I think what we do in the ring, there's a big throwback element to it that a lot of teams aren't doing. We're not trying to move faster than everyone else. We're not trying to break boundaries with what we're doing in the ring. We're trying to do, classic things well, and people seem to be reacting well to that.
Yeah. You've kind of talked about where you come up post-pandemic. So obviously ICW was at a build in that time. You've probably seen in real time that rebuild. What's that been like watching ICW? You kind of have to go from where it was left where all the wrestling companies were left in the pandemic to kind of now where it now feels like they're starting to rebuild momentum.
For me, it's a really exciting time because not only in ICW but GPWA, the ICW school, there's a real buzz and this sort of collective spirit because like everyone in the UK who knows anything about wrestling, if they don't know, they should know what ICW has achieved in fairly recent history, and there's a real buzz in being there for this rebuild, if you want to call it that, and everyone working together, and because you know where it can get to, like it's it's kind of wild what ICW actually achieved, and I don't know, it kind of makes you work that little 5% harder.
Yeah.
Trying to get it back to that sort of area, those sort of crowds, those sort of venues.
Yeah, and one of the more unique things about ICW is that they kind of have a unique roster. There's a lot of companies in the UK use the same kind of 20, 30 guys. There's nothing wrong with that, but ICW really tries to build their own roster that is unique, that you can only see really in ICW. And I think that's something really special, and that's something that helped them in the past, and something that's going to help them again moving forward over the next few years. They kind of look towards the long term rather than the instant gratification. And
that makes it a lot easier to respect people's character work and stuff that you're building, because if you're putting a lot of effort into portraying a certain character for ICW, then maybe you're booked somewhere down south or somewhere else in Scotland and they ask you to be something totally different. In my opinion, too many folk do it without thinking about the repercussions, and a lot of the time in Scotland they might be wrestling in front of a lot of the same crowd. So maybe one week they're seeing someone do one thing, the next week they're seeing them do something else. And it kind of disrespects the whole thing that we're trying to do, Whereas,
psychology of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it kind of mugs everyone off, and I think ICW trying to cultivate their own roster, and it really helps you actually try and build something, which is all any of us really want to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the more kind of like old school, not in a bad way at all, like very positive meaning actually, like old school mentality of that kind of like storytelling based wrestling. Very much seems key to your philosophy of
sure, man, for sure. I think ICW has always had a focus on that anyway, but like Brody said, I think nowadays in 2024 British wrestling, I think ICW is probably at the top in terms of the promotions that prioritise that. I don't want to say, well, you know more than I do probably, but I don't want to say that other places are more indie, where they focus on like the fast action in the ring, which is always incredible, obviously. But there's maybe a little bit less put into character work and less put into kayfabe, and I don't know. Again, it might be my age, but I think if there's not a really huge focus on kayfabe and character, then it's not quite pro wrestling, Yeah.
Is there a particular moment that grabbed you when you were like a kid that like was kind of the moment almost?
Not as a kid, no. I loved wrestling as a kid. I watched it every single week, but there was never a moment that made me go, this is it, this is what I want to do. My moment when I decided this is what I want to do came in 2019. I went to Japan to watch a Wrestle Kingdom show, which is the big show New Japan does every year. And there was a moment when I was sitting in that stadium, the pyro was going off, Minoru Suzuki was making his entrance to to face someone, and I just it was that moment sitting there. I thought, I need to try this. I need to try and do it. Maybe not to that level. That's the highest level I can possibly get to. But I sat there and I realised I need to make an attempt at doing something with this, because this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So mine came much later on. When I was 27 years old.
I think the first episode of Raw I ever watched, I saw Mick Foley pull a sock from his underpants and put it on his hand, and I was like, I need to know what this is. I need to know more about what's happening here. And then, I never thought especially when I was that age, but I never thought I was going to like get into pro wrestling to this extent or try pro wrestling. It wasn't until middle of the first major COVID lockdown, and I watched You Cannot Kill David Arquette, and I don't know, obviously I'd be going through some sort of minor meltdown that I wasn't aware of, and I'd watched that and I was like, I'm going to try pro wrestling. It had been lying dormant inside for such a long time, but when I was younger I'd always dismissed it. I was like, that's daft, like you're never going to do that, like don't be silly, you're never going to do that, whether it's you're not going to have the bravery required or the strength or whatever. COVID lockdown, I think, made a lot of people like reevaluate the pattern of their life and what they were dedicating their time to. And for me, it was I wanted to dive into pro wrestling. So yeah, but with that image of Mick Foley with a sock on his hand in my head, for sure.
Yeah. All right, brilliant, guys. That's awesome.